so that meeting was, I guess, February. January was when Dan Beckhart came and spoke about the Alabama story, which Westmoreland Players is putting on. And they had said that they would like to offer Interracial Conversations a discounted night to attend. And so we've chosen May 17th. They actually gave us 2 Saturday night options. So May 17th is the night that we chose. And they're going to offer us tickets for half off. And there's going to be a code. So once we get that code and information, and I've spoken with him today, so it's all happening soon, I'm going to send it to Judy, and she's going to send it out on MailChimp, and then you go to their website to get the tickets at half off. There are 50 tickets, so it's a first come, first serve. So if you're interested in seeing the Alabama story, at 50% off, I would encourage you to do so once you get the email.
As treasurer of our organization, we are trying to generate a little income to meet our expenses for IRC and NK. So we have here a donation jar. And if you want to put something in, we would love it. And for overflow, we have a donation basket right there. So that, we will take care of your gift. I assure you, it'll be safe, so thank you.
That basket can also be used for suggestions for future programming or any other suggestions that you might have. So feel free to, there's slips of paper there too.
I'm pleased to announce that Interracial Conversations is planning its second bus trip. It's going to be to Charleston, South Carolina, and it will take place in late August. What I'm juggling is the finances of it, but let me tell you a little bit about the trip before I explain that conundrum. There are several primary, we'll be staying 4 days and 3 nights. We'll be traveling again by Olita Coach Lines, the wonderful bus company that we found out of Williamsburg. We'll be staying at the Embassy Suites historic Charleston Hotel, and there are 3 primary activities scheduled. There will also be free time for you to explore on your own, but we'll be going to the relatively new African American Museum, International African American Museum. We'll be taking a tour of Charleston through Frankly Charleston tours led by a man named Franklin Williams, and we'll be taking a tour of Mother Emanuel AME Church. You'll recall that in 2015, that's where 9 persons engaged in Bible study were shot to death, and it's also that event was one of the reasons that Interracial Conversations came into being. So it's kind of a 10th anniversary marking for IRC. Mother Emanuel is also an old historic church for reasons other than that sad event. So I've received 1 grant. We've received 1 grant for this trip, but I haven't heard about the second grant and won't hear till mid-May. I'm going to, you won't be able to remember all these numbers, but I will send this out through the distribution list in a day or 2. But I wanted to know who might be interested in going. You can cancel. I'm particularly interested in getting the word out first to people who come to these meetings who are active. We're going to be offering a price break for people who are traveling for the first time. Second timers will pay slightly more. And a caveat that if the grant money doesn't come through for some reason, it's possible we might have to cancel the trip. But just don't think about that. So,
Judy, did you not have a price if the grant didn't come through and a price if the grant comes through?
I do.
Okay.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, I just would be curious to know.
I'm looking at if we get both grants, it'd be about $250 per person for first-timers, $350 for second-timers. If we go with only the one grant that we've already received, it'd be about $400 for first-timers and $500 for second-timers.
And that's 3 nights, right?
3 nights, 4 days.
And it's the
24th through 27th of August. It'll be hot, but everything except for a few dashes from bus to building will be air conditioned.
And it's a lot less to go in August than it would have been.
Absolutely, the hotel rate is reasonable, and it's a very nice hotel. So look for this on the email. If you'd like to indicate tonight that you're interested in going, I'm going to keep a list of those who are interested. We have a 50-person maximum because of bus seating.
So that's another thing you can do. If you're interested in Charleston, just write that next to your name.
I'll make the flyer that I will be sending out.
Alva's having a Juneteenth celebration at Mom Margaret's on June 17th. 14th, sorry. On June 14th. Glad you're here. And you'll learn more about that in the coming month or so. Do you have anything that you want to share yet?
We have scheduled currently guest speaker Cassandra Newby. She's a book writer. Her latest book has been on the Underground Railroad in Virginia. And then we have a country singer who's Roberta Lee. She has gotten a few awards, and then not confirmed yet, but the Horsemen from out of Fredericksburg, the Black Cowboys. So they told me I should have an answer this week, but those are the 3 lineups. Other than that, it's going to be a festival type, not just lecture, but it's going to be more of a festival. Okay, so keep your eyes on
It's a Juneteenth celebration. Well, I have to do a pitch for Westmoreland County then. So there's going to be a wonderful fish fry at Ebenezer Methodist Church. And it's this Friday, right?
This Friday.
What time?
5 to 7 p.m.
5 to 7 p.m. and all proceeds go to a wonderful new program, the United Ministries of Westmoreland County, and our mission is to help people facing potential homelessness and also barriers to their health care needs. So come on out. They say a $15 donation is requested, but they're not demanding it. So come out and have some food.
It's in beautiful downtown Oldham's, Virginia.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm very honored to introduce our leader for the evening. John Bateman is the assistant county administrator for Lancaster County, and also the economic development director for Lancaster County. Now, I did not know that John existed on planet Earth until like 2 months ago. And since then, I've had like 5 occasions where I've been in his presence. And I can testify that this guy knows stuff about government, and he does it in a way that keeps you awake. He has all kinds of statistics and facts, but what he brings is a real passion for making things work. And in particular for tonight's subject, he really knows a lot about housing for low-income persons, which is a critical need in our area. When the average rent of our area is $1,200 a month, and do the math, if somebody's bringing in $30,000 a year, almost all of their income is going toward rent. How do we do better? John has thought a lot about this, and he has ideas tonight, so he's going to share some thoughts about this, but he is also a dialogical kind of guy, and he's going to welcome questions from you and to have a conversation this evening so that we can all together move forward in this very complex and yet important area of our community.
ladies and gentlemen, John Bateman.
And thanks for the warm welcome, folks. I really appreciate it. How are y'all this evening? Good. And really enjoyed this nice spring day that we had. It's about time. I don't know that it'll last. It'll probably be 90 next week. Anyway, my name's John Bateman, as Tom said. He said what my title is, but I thought I'd start with this. I have to confess I have an ulterior motive for being here. And that ulterior motive is progress. And really, not just progress for my county, but progress that can be emulated in the other counties. I spent 10 years working for the Northern Neck Planning District Commission as a community development planner, then as a regional planner. So I know quite a bit about community development, housing development. But I wanted to kind of take a quick poll of where everybody's from. So how many Lancaster residents do we have here right now? All right, good. All right, Northumberland. Oh boy, okay. Richmond County and Westmoreland. All right, we got a good mixed bag here. This is fantastic. All right. In that time at the Planning District Commission, I got to understand what some of the needs are of the 4 counties that we served. But since I've been at Lancaster County, I've gotten to really dig deep in the last year and 4 months or so as to what the community needs are in Lancaster. And I don't feel that they're too dissimilar from what the needs of the other counties are. We have a lot in common regionally. So anything that I say today that may be Lancaster specific, I wholly believe is replicable in the other counties, should they leadership take that tact. But here I can speak for my county and my leadership, and we have a really good board of supervisors right now. Our county leadership has got continuity, they have vision, and they also have what I think is most important in an elected leader, the ability to get to yes. Saying no is easy, saying yes is hard, and getting to yes is very important. But in order to get the progress that we desire as a county, it takes components. It takes making connections. So as Tom mentioned, I've run into him a lot, run into Donna a lot. We make connections, but to quote from the mission statement of IRC, we need dialogue, we need to have an understanding, we need to have advocacy, and ultimately that needs to culminate in purposeful action. And that's what the county of Lancaster is trying to do. So the county back in 2019 or so established a Citizens Business Relations Advisory Committee, otherwise known as Lancaster 2035 Committee. And they put together a strategic economic action plan, a 10-year plan to try to secure the county's economic future. And they did so with input from the community. They did focus groups. They did so collaboratively. This group is made up of 2 of our elected officials. It has the superintendent of schools, planning commission chairman, economic development authority chairman, local business leaders, developers. So it was a really mixed bag. And I won't go into the gory details of the findings portion of the plan, but let's just say that we have a age demographic crisis in Lancaster County. Northumberland shares this demographic problem. We're shedding very rapidly our workforce age population, 20 to 60, and we're gaining very rapidly an aging population that retires here, that sees all the great things and the reasons why we live here, and what that's done is it's really reduced the amount of workforce that we have. So, the individuals that live here demand services, and we don't really have the workforce to provide those services. So 2035 plan seeks a very simple solution. It's to increase the workforce age population in Lancaster County by 1,000 residents by 2035. That represents 10% of our current population. It's really not a heavy lift when you think about it. And this is workforce population age 20 to 60, hopefully high skill, high paying jobs. But we also can't forget about about the community members that already are here. I see it on a daily basis. My housing director, Tina Reamer, sees it on a daily basis, just how hard it is to get by for many of our community members. So as we try to bring in people into the county, we don't want to displace the people that are here any further, and we want to increase their upward mobility. So you all came here to really hear me talk about housing, which is probably the core of the 6 strategies that we chose as a county to pursue. Those other strategies included workforce development and a world-class education system. It included recreation for all ages of all types to create a quality of life, broadband access for all, better communication. But really the linchpin of it all is housing, because if you live in Lancaster County, to be able to afford to live there, and you're working class, you pretty much have to have 2 or 3 jobs to be able to afford to live there. And that's if you can find a place to live at all. There certainly isn't rental housing. So I wanted to start today on the housing front, talking about kind of like what the landscape is in our area. And I know Alan was supposed to be here today. I hope he's okay, but really kind of Bay aging service area. I think Lancaster is pretty indicative of what the landscape looks like throughout the rest of Bay aging service area. So we don't have rental housing. We don't have affordable home ownership opportunities. And solving this problem is very complex because we have to think about different demographical populations. Our workforce is made up of a wide range of individuals. We have low-income individuals. We have aging individuals. So we have a young workforce that doesn't have really any opportunity to make high wage earnings to afford to live here. We have an aging population that should be retiring, but they can't afford to retire because of the cost of living. And so this is a complex problem. I think the county's solutions for housing, and this is directly from our 2035 plan, the objectives are pretty clear. It's to create public-private partnerships to develop county-owned property and other parcels in the county, residential development, to create a housing authority or a community development corporation, and to create economic incentives to attract private development that can create housing affordability. We had a telling meeting last year with Ryan Homes. They were going to build a subdivision back behind our elementary school off School Street in Kilmarnock, and they engaged the community, and I applauded them for that. But the community asked really hard questions about affordability, because they were looking at building units. These were townhomes, and they were like, oh, well, they'll start in kind of mid-3s. Well, that's wholly unaffordable. I mean, the median income for our teachers in Lancaster County, and make no mistake, Lancaster County's got one of the most competitive salary packages for teachers in the region, is $50,000. And if you really think about what it takes at $50,000, I mean, you can't afford that. You really can't afford $200,000 home if you want home ownership opportunity. Certainly can't afford rent that's over $1,000. The market rate rent for Lancaster right now is right around $1,150, and that's the market rate. That's what HUD deems as the market rate, and that's just wholly unaffordable for somebody that makes $50,000 or less. The bulk of our workforce makes $50,000 or less. So when we talk about affordable workforce housing, we need to really think about what the monetary or what the income capabilities are of our residents. I come from a community development background. I don't really care what you call it. You can call it low-income housing, you can call it affordable housing, you can call it workforce housing. It's all the same thing. And it needs to serve a range of people, because the solution for somebody who makes 30% or less of the area median income in Lancaster County is going to look a lot different than the person who makes 120% of the area median income and still can't find affordable housing. So the solution for a 19 to 30-year-old who doesn't have children is going to be a lot different than the solution for someone who's in their 40s and they have 3 children and they're desperate for a second career or a third career. So it makes finding solutions complex, but we kind of just have to like start somewhere, try to build some momentum. Got to walk and chew gum. So I laid out these objectives that we have, and then there's goals and actions under each one of those objectives. So, the first thing that we're going to probably do is do a countywide housing needs assessment. Many planning district commissions do regional assessments for all their counties. For some reason, our planning district commission has not done that. So we're going to go it alone as a county. And this needs assessment needs to look at existing housing stock. It needs to look at what solutions are available to us. But it also needs to look at what the market needs. And so when I say I want to make progress, and I say dialogue's part of that progress, we need to know what the community needs. And those members of our community that are in greatest need are the quietest. They don't make any noise. They slip through the cracks. They're hidden. They're invisible. And my hope is that groups like this can actually help create a conduit for dialogue with those community members, because that's the real challenge. When I talk with my Lancaster 2035 committee, it's like, how do we reach these folks? How do we know what the real, what they need, what they want? I'm sure we can build a bunch of single-family, single-bedroom apartments, but is that really what's needed here? So what we need to engage the community, and we need to have communication, which is one of those 6 strategies, to really understand what the community needs. And we can't go figuring out the future of the county without engaging everyone that's going to be part of that future, right? The demographic, admittedly, the demographic of my 2035 committee is middle-aged, white, pretty successful. And that's not representative of our community. So you have to have representation. We don't have the young people. So we're doing focus groups again. We're meeting with, we started with 19 to 24-year-olds, and now we're looking at 25 to like 31, and then we're going to go from there. We're looking at the different, different demographics, trying to really understand, but we need help. It's really not the role of county government county government isn't nimble enough or good enough to have these community conversations. But organizations like y'all's are. And so we've been trying to form strategic partnerships with Interfaith, The Link, Habitat, you all, to try to see where you guys can play a role in getting us the information we need so that we can then try to formulate solutions. And then you guys help us to disseminate those solutions to people. So to dig a little deep into what we're going to try to do on rehabbing and refurbishing existing housing. So we have an aging housing stock, and that's our biggest asset right now, right? We can't develop our way out of this situation. We already have housing, and it's some of the most affordable housing is our existing housing stock, but many of it's in disrepair. We have a lot of people that are aging in place that really just simply can't afford to fix up their home. Their home needs maintenance. So we got to address the housing stock. When I worked at the Planning District Commission, we did several community development block grant projects. These were neighborhood revitalization projects. We did one in Brown Store on Light Street, and we did one in my county in Greentown and Gaskins Road in Weems. And the purpose was these were long-standing, predominantly low-income black communities that really just needed help. You had a generation that kind of built it, that built that generational wealth, and they were aging out, and they really needed assistance to try to help revitalize the community. So we did that. We applied for a block grant. In Lancaster's situation, we did a community sewer system. I think we rehabbed or replaced 26 homes. We demolished 8 or 9 vacant and blighted structures. So these block grant projects are one way in which you can address the existing housing stock. But they're highly competitive funds. It's really difficult, takes a long time, a lot of community support to put together a project like that. And so it can have a community level impact, but it takes a long time. And there are other communities in Virginia, York County is one of them. Every year they're putting in a block grant application. They're finding an area, and they don't always get funded, but they're staying on top of it. There are other programs that are available to help us address the existing housing stock. This is where groups like Interfaith and The Link come into play, Habitat for Humanity. These are strategic roles that they can help us play in trying to shore up our existing housing stock. There's examples from across the state of Virginia. There's a program in Mount Rogers Planning District Commission where they've partnered with the Economic Development Authority there to acquire vacant and blighted properties, and then they act as a developer using some acquire, renovate, sell funds through DHCD to fix the houses up, and then they effectively use low-income housing tax credits to subsidize the mortgage to make it a below-market rate mortgage. Because in this instance, if you go make it below market rate, you're going to be disruptive to the market, and you don't want to do that. You can have unintended consequences. So they basically just subsidize the mortgage to make it more affordable. There's a million examples of this all over the state in this region, and I'm not one to reinvent. These aren't my ideas. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are solutions out there that have been very successful elsewhere. We just got to pinpoint which ones can be also successful here. We need to. When we did those block grant projects, what we really found out was, one, there was a newer generation that was taking on that generational wealth. They didn't really understand what it took to build it. They didn't understand what it took to maintain it. So there's a level of education that needs to happen, and I don't know how to do that, But we have generations that really don't. My feeling is if, and I feel like I'm in a safe space saying this, if you've never had anything nice, anything that you built that was nice, how do you know what to do with it? So there's a level of uplifting that needs to happen, and I really don't know how to accomplish that. And again, it's not the role of county government to do that, but there are entities here in this region, in Lancaster County, that can do that. The biggest asset I think that I found in Lancaster County that we have is a sense of social investment, the sense of volunteerism. I mean, all of you are here today. You're volunteering your time to be here. It's rampant. I don't care if you're come here, from here, I'm a work here. I live in Gloucester. But it doesn't matter. People adopt this area, and they want to give back. And we're not properly leveraging that. And there's a really neat thing that's happened recently that you all should be aware of, or if you're not already. Serve Virginia is partnered with the River Counties Community Foundation with some grant funding to put together a volunteer portal. And the idea is to create a conduit for people who are looking for opportunities to volunteer their time, maybe to donate money, whatever resources they have, to put that to effective use. And so we need to properly leverage these assets that we have in creating strategic partnerships with people like Tom and the Link, with Habitat for Humanity, with the local churches. I mean, how I came here today is I went to the Ministerial Association and kind of talked about these things. If we can pool all these resources that we have together collectively, we can have a greater collective impact. And again, these are many things that really are not the purview of county government, and that we just simply can't do it. So we need the community's help. We can't do it alone. We need to have those gaps filled. I know I'm kind of rambling here a little bit, but let's talk about constructing new lower income or more affordable housing. The number one impediment to really economic development of any kind in Lancaster and the region is the lack of public utilities. Without public utilities, you can't build affordably. All right, and I'll dig into that a little bit, but I want to make it clear because we have a very large contingent of individuals in our county that are very much anti-development. They moved here. They want to slam the door shut behind them, and I don't want. You know, they talk about things like solar farms that are up the county, and they've never even been up. They've never been to Lively. It's too far. It's 10 minutes from Kilmarnock. Go to Lively, go to the corner, have a beer. But we have to push back on that kind of like NIMBY mindset, that not in my backyard mindset, because it's exclusionary, you know. So the best way to really do that is to make it clear and communicate what the needs are. All right. You gotta make it clear. And public utilities, there's a sentiment that like, oh, if you bring public water and sewer, that's going to bring development. Well, honestly, I've been a planner for 15 years. It's the exact opposite. Development is what brings public utilities. It's happening, if you guys live in Lancaster County, it's happening on Route 200 between Kilmarnock and Irvington. County's building a new high middle school. The Hills Quarter subdivision's getting built out. You have another subdivision that's getting some serious interest, and all that's driving expansion of Kilmarnock's public sewer down Route 200. And it's the county's intention to hopefully try to get that public water and sewer into the Weems area to serve some of the residents down there that have failing septic systems. That's why that block grant project was initiated, is because people had failing septic systems. The soils are terrible. You know, they don't perk. So but that really, what it does is public water and sewer reduces development costs. You gotta, you know, the reason the Ryan Holmes guy said something that really kind of irked me. He was like, well, you could give me the land and you could give me the public utilities and I still can't build you an affordable house. Well, that just strikes me as the epitome of greed right there. I mean, you know, I've seen it done elsewhere, so, you know. But you got to do things like reduce land acquisition costs, reduce building costs, pre-construction activities. So what Lancaster is trying to do is, we're blessed as a county to have quite a bit of land assets. And yes, we've sat on those land assets and we get criticized for it, but we sat on them because we're waiting for an opportunity. And the opportunities are starting to coalesce. So the county owns 150 acres on Good Luck Road. That's, if you're going up Lancaster County, up Route 3, on the left, not the right, not going to the winery on the left. It's right up against the eastern branch of the Cortoma River. It's beautiful property. Well, the county's is in the process of putting together development scenarios to back into the expansion of public water and sewer to the site to try to, again, you know, make the site more ready for some sort of like mixed-use development, affordable housing, not too dissimilar to what Middlesex is doing at Cook's Corner. It's very, very similar to what they're doing at Cook's Corner. But we're looking at ways that we can make our property more appealing to a private developer. But even then, even with let's say we can offload that piece of land to a developer with public water and sewer already there. How are they still? We have to reduce the development cost even further. So we got to do more of the pre-development activities. We have to, you know, do all that pre-development work, site work, to get it ready. And then we need to look at what options we have, whether it's low-income housing tax credits, historic tax credits, capital stacking, right? It's that you're not going to find a grant, certainly not finding a grant right now that's going to pay for it all. So you have to find a capital stacking structure to kind of pay for it all, and that comes through subsidies like tax credits. A bank's not going to bankroll it if you're going to do financing or credit. You got to find some way to reduce the risk of the bank. There's these things called community development finance institutions that can guarantee loans for banks, at 85% rate or whatever it is, that kind of reduces the risk of the bank. So like I said, when you're trying to develop your way out of the housing crisis, it's very complicated, and there's a million ways you can do it. So I actually last year applied to be part of this thing called it's community investment training. It's the Rural Investment Collaborative is a program through the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, which serves 5 states. And it's a cohort training. This is the second year of it. And what it is it brings, first of all, communities who have similar problems, because this is a nationwide problem, together to talk about what's worked for them and what hasn't. It brings experts, whether banking institutions or non-governmental organizations, to come present on options that they have to help solve the problem. And what I'm learning is that it's possible to get out of this crisis. It's just going to take a lot of hard work. It's going to take a lot of willpower, particularly political willpower, which I think we have in Lancaster County. And it's going to take all of our resources, whether voluntary, monetary, or whatever, and bring it all to bear on a project.
I have a question.
Oh, please. I wanted this to be more of a dialogue. Yeah, I'm talking.
I attended a briefing last month on faith-based housing. That's one of the things that we're interested in here because
Yes.
of acreage that we have. And they
Yes.
mentioned the Community Reinvestment Act. Are you familiar with
Yes,
that?
I am familiar with the community reinvestment.
And could you share a little bit about what that is?
I don't know how useful it is to talk about the act itself, but what the intended consequences are. And right now, again, be reminded that most of that federal funding is kind of in limbo, to say the least. But the intention is to revitalize what we have. Like we have assets. We were talking about housing rehabilitation, and that's one. We were talking about needing public sewer. That's another. So that's. Let me talk about. Actually, let me actually pivot a little bit and talk about the faith-based housing. So and what Virginia's doing about it. All right, because they can't. The federal government can't touch what Virginia's doing. Virginia recently, the General Assembly for the last 2 or 3 years has entertained a set of bills that would. And there's 2 different kinds of bills in the General Assembly. There's ones that are like, you shall do this. And then there's others that are like, you may do this. And those are kind of more affirmative bills. It's like, hey, did you know? Well, this was faith-based housing in Virginia. And it was kind of just an affirmation. It was to say, all those church organizations that may have land assets or other resources available to them, you can do affordable housing. You're allowed to do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. But I don't think any one organization has all the resources. So it's going to take a pooling of our resources to really accomplish the task.
Yeah, they talked about a process, including a change in some of the laws, especially with regards to making the lands available and approved through boards of supervisors and that sort of
So that's what makes that legislation affirmative, is they're basically, through the legislature, reminding counties that there's nothing restricting you from allowing affordable housing development. And I can tell you right now from our county's perspective, we're not stopping any affordable housing development. If a church owns a piece of land and they have the money to build affordable housing, let's say so we have and I kind of skipped over this, but our county has a new density zoning that we passed last year. It's R4, and the idea was the 2035 committee challenged the Planning Commission to review its policies regularly to make sure that we're not being restrictive or exclusionary. That R4 increases density from between 4 and 6 acres, 4 and 6 units per acre, and gives bonus density for affordability. Okay, so if a church say that we have a piece of land here and we'd love to do affordable housing, and they came to the county and they wanted to rezone that to R4, I can tell you right now that you're probably not going to have any opposition at all. That our county, our planning commission, our board of supervisors understands what the problem is.
No, we're Northumberland County, so.
I know. And when I say our county, I'm not casting dispersions.
That raises another question about why there isn't a more regional approach to this. What are the obstacles to that? Lancaster is acting on its own. There must be a reason why there hasn't been a more regional approach.
In my opinion, in my experience, it actually takes a hyper-local approach. There's only so much you can do. Like with the housing study, that's something that could be done regionally. That should have been done a decade ago, and it should be done every 5 years and kept up to date. You'll have to talk to the Planning District Commission about that. But there are things that you can do regionally. The Planning District Commission administered those block grant projects, and we probably need that. That's capacity that we don't have as a county. So there are things that you can do regionally but when it comes to like the nitty-gritty, it really does take a hyper local approach, because again, every county's different. But we did that density, and currently the Planning Commission was challenged to review a policy as a waterfront overlay district that we have that's been very restrictive on the inner parts of the county. And it's really a misnomer, because the properties that are being restricted aren't waterfront. They're not taxed as waterfront. They're not waterfront. What that waterfront overlay district was to limit development along the coastal waters, so the main rivers and tributaries. Not, our county courthouse is in the waterfront overlay district. We're 14 miles from the water. So anyway, the Planning Commission recently just recommended to the Board of Supervisors to redefine what waterfront is. That would end up reducing that geographical area, and because what's happened is people have generational land inland in the county, and this is land, and the lady spoke very eloquently at our Planning Commission. Her father gave her this land with the intention that it would be subdivided into lots for the 3 siblings, and now they finally have the ability to do that, and they're being told that no, you can't. And this is, again, it was generational wealth that was given, and it's being restricted. And really what's happening is the waterfront property owners, who are primarily against changing the waterfront overlay district, they're subsidizing. You're restricting someone inland's ability to develop their land, and thus subsidizing the people who live on the water's ability to develop their land, and that's just not right. It's exclusionary, it's restrictive, and so our 2035 committee is regularly challenging our elected leaders and our commissions to review its policies. We have a very exclusionary manufactured and modular home policy, and there's a reason for that. Back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the manufactured home industry was making really poor products, and they were plopping trailers everywhere, and that is not permanent housing. That is temporary housing. You have people that are living in trailers for 70 years. It wasn't intended for that. It's intended for 20, 30 years of life. Now the industry has really come around with pressure from the federal government through HUD to really make a quality product. Even the industry mindset has changed. They've realized that they can make more money creating a more quality product. So there's been huge advancements in modular and manufactured home building practices, but our policies haven't been updated. So they're still very restrictive. And so we really need to review our zoning ordinance as a county to make sure that, let's say we wanted to put in some manufactured or modular homes onto a parcel, because a stick-built house will cost you, what, $190,000? I think Habitat said the last unit they built cost them $190,000. $60,000 to build it. If I can build the same square footage for $77,000 with a modular unit or a manufactured unit, why would I not do that? Yes.
Hi, Mr. Bateman. Thank you very much for your efforts on behalf of the homeless and people looking for affordable housing. I'm with United Ministries of Westmoreland County, so we're outside of your purview. But I have a question about some of the expressions that we're using here when we talk about affordable housing. I've associated with CASA up in D.C., and their efforts are trying to give people homes rather than rentals. But, my basic concern is when we're talking about affordable housing, what are we talking about? People acquiring land or homes for their own possession or rentals?
All the above.
Okay. So it's kind of like a global, right.
Because what's needed for one person might not be needed for that. A 19 to 24-year-old is really, at this point, in our economic standpoint, not looking to own a home.
I get that, but we were discussing a study last night regarding generational poverty.
Right.
And home ownership seems to be the entry point in getting out of that. And that's why I was just wondering about it.
It's undeniable that historically generational wealth is built through home ownership.
Yes, sir.
I had to wait until I was 37 years old to be able to afford to buy my first home.
Well, you were young.
Yeah. When my parents were able to buy their first home when they first got married at age 24,
That's right.
for $70,000 is how much they paid for my home. My first home cost me $260,000, and that mortgage was close to 50% of our collected income between me and my ex-wife. So right now. Home ownership costs a lot of money. So again, there are many people that need, right now I'm seeing in Lancaster County, what we're seeing the biggest demand for is not home ownership, it's actually rental property.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I wanted to first thank Lancaster County for all the effort they have done over the past 15 years since I've been a come here, because Devil Bottom Road, I was on the board at the time of Habitat when that was built.
Okay, great.
Okay. And I know the effort that the county put in to make it happen. So before I ask the question, I wanted to make sure we are very thankful for what Lancaster County has done. I'm no longer on the board, but as I look at the elementary school that's up there on Devil Bottom and
The old primary school,
uh-huh.
and it was Brookvale High School until 1969.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I look at that and I say to myself, because I'm on the board of the link now, okay?
Okay, great.
That we have all these individuals that are looking for rental properties
Yep.
because the rent has doubled in the past 2 years. So all of a sudden, individuals who were paying $700 now have to pay $1,400 for a rental property that is subpar. And when I say subpar, I'm being nice.
It's inadequate.
Okay. So why don't we repurpose that primary school?
That's a very good question you're asking. So I'm going to shift. I talked a little bit about how you reduce development costs to create an affordable home to buy. Let's talk a little bit about rentals, because right now the biggest demand is for rental properties. And like I said, the county has a lot of assets, including that school. And I was going to get to that. So last year we had our county leadership, a small contingent of our county leadership, myself and my administrator, had what I would call a listening session with a group called Save Brookvale History. There's a group of concerned citizens that all attended Brookvale High School when it was the black high school until 1969 that want to see the history of that building, not just the building, but of the students and the community that it served preserved. And we asked them questions like, well, what would you like to see? What would you like to see there? And they said things just like what you're saying. So here's what I've been doing. So when I first took this job, the county said, all right, we got this building. My board, we're building a new high middle school. We're spending millions of dollars. We need this one off the books. But they weren't specific. So I set task one. I put it on VEDP site selection tool for sale, lease, or rent in case there was a commercial or industrial entity out there that wanted to make use of the facility. It's been done before. It was done with O'Gara in Westmoreland County. That was a former property. I also am looking at several redevelopment scenarios. And the one that actually is my project for the cohort that I'm in is the redevelopment of the school into a commercial kitchen, community center, and affordable housing units. And those affordable housing units would serve a mixed income and mixed age demographics. Some of it would be age restricted. Some would be age restricted, like for senior transitional housing, people that can't live in a traditional single family dwelling anymore, and also for a workforce, our public service workers, and have community centers. So what I noticed in Lancaster is, well, one, we have really big funerals. Like, I'm talking like 250 people. I mean, the high school is getting rented on a regular basis, the gymnasium, for funerals. Well, we have a perfectly huge gymnasium at that primary school. There's a huge need in the region for a commercial kitchen, a commissary kitchen, that could serve a number of non-governmental organizations and private businesses. And the housing portion of it's a little tricky, but that's, yeah, I'm looking at redevelopment scenario for that building. We're looking as a county to put together a package of projects using all the county's assets. All right, and all the assets that might, Habitat you mentioned Habitat? Well, the county donated a property to Habitat for Humanity back in 2016 up the county right near Belle Isle State Park. And so it's going back to Habitat, and I've had some very meaningful conversations with current leadership. And your new executive director, Maggie, was part of that conversation. What can we do to pool our resources together to do something with that? What can we do to pool our resources to do something with what the county has? But it takes a lot of work. There's a lot of understanding that you have to have. And then when it comes to the funding the thing, that's a sticky wicket.
I'm glad to hear what you just said.
Yes.
Paula Greenwood, Kilmarnock. About a year and a half ago, I sat down with, I think it's Dave Seabrook in the Kilmarnock office. Marshall Seabrook. And we talked about this exact thing, affordable housing. I lived mostly on Social Security, and I was lucky enough to buy a house 20 years ago in Kilmarnock. But if I didn't have that house, I would probably be living in somebody's garage because of the cost of living. And we talked about affordable rentals and buy and buildings, homes in the Kilmarnock area. And I said, people with money can move here all they want, but if the services aren't here, they're not going to have anything to stay for. And we talked about building affordable housing, and he said, one of the things he said, which is a very, very valid question, you can't tell the builders what to build.
That's right.
So they're going to come in and they're going to want to build the most expensive housing they could possibly sell to make money. So my question is, and you said a little bit about this, but how do you get the builders to come in and build what you want, which is affordable housing with reasonable rents and reasonable prices? The new houses on Irvington Road, I understand, went for, what, $250,000, $300,000?
Yeah.
So that's not affordable housing.
Right.
So how do you get the builders to want to come in and build places that people can afford to live?
Yeah. So, frankly, it takes public involvement. It takes public-private partnerships, and when I say public-private partnership, probably more on the public, more falls on the public, on the governing bodies, right, to try to create. Because again, the private developers they want to make money, and they're not going to reduce their bottom line, as the gentleman from Brian Holmes said, to do that. So again, you gotta try to reduce. You got to try to create the opportunity policy-wise. So we created that R4 density housing. So that's carrot. It's like, okay, here's your bonus density, which is going to reduce their developmental costs. You can supply the land. So, for instance, the county owns the land now, but the county can't just say, okay, developer A, we're going to give you the land. The county's not allowed to do that by state statute, but an economic development authority can. The county could gift the property to the economic development authority, and they can give the land to whoever they want. They don't have to go through a competitive process.
And then can you say what will be built on that land?
Okay, you can try to negotiate what will be built, but that doesn't really get you on the cost bit, right? So then you got to talk about the public utilities. So you're going to have to subsidize the cost of expanding the public utilities to the site, all right? And there are ways to do affordable housing development where there are no public utilities. It's just a little bit tougher. Then you got to do it. But then when it comes to, okay, well, the actual costs to build a house. The developer, again, you got to find a way to capital stack, right? So a traditional developer is going to go get financing from a bank, and then it's going to utilize that financing to build out a certain home. They know what the market is. They know what they can get for it. They've got all that figured out. We have to do all that as a locality, do that figuring, do that number, that math, and then we got to find a way to start bringing those numbers down. You can do that. Obviously there are grants that you can get. Tax credits can do that. You got to find the different avenues to stack, because there's really like 5 capitals, and there's 5 things you need to do, and it all takes. It takes money. You're not going to just grant your way out of it. So, you can't make them, but you can entice them. I've talked to a dozen developers since I've been on this job, all of whom want to do affordable housing. They just haven't figured it out. But they're eager to have a public-private partnership to help figure it out.
I'm glad to hear you're working on all this. It's really encouraging to me. Now, I just had a question. You're talking strictly Lancaster County. We have 3 other counties on the northern neck.
That's right.
Are you having this conversation with those county governments to be able to expand what Lancaster is doing to help the other counties?
That's a good question. What you're actually describing is really the role a planning district commission is supposed to take. They're supposed to convene what the needs are and glean what the needs are of the communities, and where there's overlap, address that. And the planning district commission does. It gets $1 million from Virginia Housing every year to do affordable workforce housing.
All counties or just?
All planning district commissions get $1 million. What's that?
Is there one in each county?
The planning district commissions, the one here serves the 4 counties of the northern neck. So they get $1 million, and they did some upper story housing in Whitestone. They're doing some work in Northumberland, I believe, right?
They are.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them do anything, and I've been here 24 years.
And I actually, so I have been in conversation in Northumberland with Bob Ballard, who's chairman of the Economic Development Commission in Northumberland. Because we have a lot in common, and really what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But all we can do as a county is to try to create something that's emulatable. And we're always open to strategic partnership. On the housing front, though, it's really tough because, it's kind of hyper-local. But for instance, that Habitat parcel that I mentioned. Well, Habitat serves Northumberland and Lancaster County. And I don't care if Northumberland residents live in Lancaster County. They already do. They come live here, work here, please. We'll take you. I got no. I guess what you're saying is it transcends boundaries, and it really does. But there's not much we can do as a local government on the housing front. On things like workforce development, absolutely. There's plenty of opportunity. Yes, sir.
One of the things that, and I don't know what you could do about this, but within a mile of our house, there are at least 4 or 5 houses where the owners have passed away, and the house just goes into rack and ruin for 4 or 5 years before somebody finally buys it, and by the time they do it, they've got to do a complete refurbishment. And I don't know how you can attack that problem. I don't know what causes that, but maybe these people all die in testate or something like that, so it gets tied up in all kinds of litigation. So it seems like a huge waste. I don't know why.
You know, you're absolutely right. And let's talk about the root of the problem. The root of the problem is air properties. Mm-hmm. You know, good luck getting 14 people who think they have a financial stake in something to come to agreement on what to do with it. Every block grant project I've dealt with, and just about every property had an air situation that we had to address. And I just had a conversation. We're going through our budget process at the county, and you know, we have non-governmental organizations that look for contributions, and one of those is Legal Aid Works. And I had a conversation with their director just last week, and was like, you know, we got to do something. We got to educate people. The worst thing you can, and then alternatively, some people put it in a trust. That's even worse. Because again, you have a trustee, and good luck, you know, getting them to represent the interests of every party involved. You know, so air properties is a huge, huge problem. And you asked how you would deal with it, one house at a time. That's the only way.
You were talking about education. Households, I'm not sure if that relates to this.
Oh, it's all related.
But, no, I mean, what he was just talking about, couldn't there be a development of educating the people before they die?
Yes, without a doubt.
And maybe having some incentives for people to donate their house for tax relief or something like that? To help with the main, right? Because it seems to me, that's the least amount of money we have to spend to keep housing going.
You nailed it. That's exactly right. It's such a waste. Let's talk about end-of-life planning. All right. So this is how air properties happen. Someone's coming to the person who built the generation that built the house, coming to the end of their life, and they don't talk about end-of-life planning because it's taboo. I don't want to talk about death, you know. But getting a last will and testament is not difficult, and there are many pro bono attorneys that will help. There used to be a guy, he's passed away, God rest his soul, named Chris Stam, that used to help people do. You know, he really did. He helped a lot of people. This is something that Legal Aid Works, I think, can play a role in, and that's what my conversation was about. We need to, through organizations like this, through the local church organizations, through Lincoln, whoever it is, the people that have access to the community members. And that's what my ulterior motive is here. This is a two-way street. It's not just me talking. You guys represent access to community members. And let's just get right down to it. You know, we have low-income, predominantly black residents throughout the region and in my county that they don't complain. They're invisible. They're not the squeakiest wheel, but they need the help. And we don't have access to them. We have no way to communicate all these great things this county wants to do. We have no way to communicate to them. And we need help communicating to them. And things like what you're talking about, that education, we can do that through groups.
We also could set up programs that help them keep their house up so it doesn't get into ruin towards the end of their life. That's right. If they're going to make sure that it turns into affordable housing for somebody.
Without a doubt. That's all you. First. Second. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, I look around the room and I see people, a lot of people my age, right? Mm-hmm. A thought that I have is that to the education point is getting to young people and educating them. There's a real lack, I think, of financial literacy among young people. I mean, I think about my two boys, and when great education, college, but when they got out of college and had to fill out their first tax forms or their first tax return, and I'm a CPA, and I didn't do a very good job of teaching them what all that meant. You know, what does it mean when Social Security comes out? I mean, to teach young people as they look forward to being able to afford rent. What is a paycheck going to cover? What does a tax thing look like? I mean, I feel like there's a way to reach some people earlier. I mean, maybe it's through the schools, maybe it's through youth groups in churches to help educate these younger people about what it means to be able to afford things. Because you said earlier, if you haven't had something nice, how do you know what to have something nice? Until you can kind of understand what makes a financial well-being, so that they can, because I think affordable housing is huge, but these young people need to understand what it takes to get there.
Yeah, it takes the parents and the community to educate on that end. And our school system has a new strategic plan that it initiated this last summer, and financial literacy, human skills, life skills are top priority. So that's how that happens. But some people, I mean, when you say young people, it's really under 50.
Yes.
Right, okay, sure.
Yes, sir.
In the real estate area, one of the things that I run into all the time is that we don't plan for the 5-year. Virginia has a 5-year look back.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And I have probably 5 clients right now. They're in a nursing home, and they want to sell their home. It's hard for them to do. Very hard because they didn't do the 5-year planning. And if we could get people, whatever age, to do their planning, do their will, first of all, do their will. That would take care of it. Right. Second, when they do their life estate and what have you, that would solve a lot of problems. But the thing I run into all the time, if a parent has 3, 4, 5 children, they don't trust them. And they don't want to turn their assets over to their children because they are afraid that the children are not going to take care of them. Right. And I've seen 2 situations where the children spend all of the parents' money.
Yeah, and that's why they might put it in a trust or something.
That's why they put it in a trust.
But that binds it up.
But the thing is that we have to get people to understand when you get a certain age, you need to prepare. You can do it in your deed, the succession plan. We don't do that. Years ago, back in '86, this church had a session, a mobile sessions on doing your deed, doing your will. And right today, my mother and father, they listened to that. So when they got up in age, we didn't have that problem because back then it was a 3-year look back. Now it's 5. So we have to find a way to get the folk in the church. I don't care what age you are, because if you live into that 5-year in one day, then your assets are covered from the state.
I think we've stumbled on your next session, which is inviting
inviting Legal Aid Works to come talk about this issue, and maybe there's some action that you all can take. Ma'am, you had a question?
I did. I'm kind of in that situation now where I need to sell my house. And when I started checking on rent, I mean, I couldn't afford my Social Security isn't that much. And so when you end up in a situation that you weren't planning, I mean, you had your plans, but it didn't work out that way. Northumberland County, and is Jim here? Jim Long's not here.
No, I don't see him.
Anyway, other than Jim, there isn't anybody in Northumberland County, as far as I'm concerned, with the supervisors that have done a thing. And 25 years I've been here, and my parents were here before. They came in '82. And of course they were able to buy something because at that time, I mean, they have a beautiful little place on the water in Ditch Lake. I think that Lancaster County has done a great job. I mean, all you have to do is go into town and see what's going on. Northumberland County, on the other hand, has had, 2 Family Dollars And I don't know if anybody's seen anything else, but I haven't seen it. They try to open a restaurant, it's open for maybe 2 months, and they close it. They haven't done a thing. And if they have, and I've hurt somebody's feelings, I apologize. But I'm here to say I've seen it. I've been really involved in it until I took a couple of falls and had some surgeries and stuff. And so I've been kind of out of, because I came here for a long time.
This is why I mentioned senior transitional housing. It's really
Yeah.
important. And
125 people on the waiting list in Kilmarnock.
Yeah.
to get into senior
Yeah,
housing.
yeah, and I have,
125. I'd be dead 6 times over.
my mandate is like affordable workforce housing. So when I bring up these types of things, I get a little bit of pushback. But again, we can't forget about the population that we have. We're not gonna expend resources at the behest of one group of people to the detriment of another. So,
But isn't that the very reason that when there is an entity who is considering affordable housing, they need to look at, do a market study?
They do, yes.
To determine what the real needs are and how best to assist in meeting those needs.
So that study that the county wants to do countywide is going to include that.
Okay.
Just your county or?
Unfortunately, I get paid by Lancaster County. But honestly, this is something that should happen at the regional level. This is something that a thing like an entity like a planning district commission could do for the whole region. But yeah, we need to do a market level analysis. We need to know what existing housing stock we have and what its state is. We need to know what the workforce in this county actually needs as far as housing. We need to know what the senior population needs as far as housing. And it's going to take a group of stakeholders locally to liaise with a private contractor to try to figure all this out.
Well, I just wanted to finish what I was going to say as far as you talked about the homes that they did in Kilmarnock, that they took them down and built new ones. Have you seen what kind of shape they're in and how horribly they were built?
No, I haven't.
Well, take a tour. I have a friend that lives in one. It was his mother's, and this is a person who takes care of things. And it is built so shoddily. Is that a word?
We know what you're saying.
Okay.
We know what you're saying.
I mean, it's to me, it was an embarrassment to see. And if it hadn't been for the gentleman that passed that owned all the statues, I can't think of his name all of a sudden.
Curry.
Jim Curry, yeah, Mr. Curry. I mean, she was supposed to have a wheelchair ramp. This woman is no longer alive. This son has the house. But she was to have a wheelchair ramp, and that was part of the deal with the house.
Yeah.
Was not built. So I went to Joe, and Joe took care of it, okay? And we had a lot of volunteers.
Right.
But those volunteers have aged out. I mean, there's not.
Yeah, we need to create more volunteer opportunities. And, what you're speaking to as far as quality, you can't forego quality either in the housing development.
No, and that's what concerns me, because you're right about people not knowing. It's kind of like in my profession, it was how do you teach a person to care?
Yeah.
I mean, if they've never been taught that.
Yeah.
They don't know.
It's 7 o'clock.
Oh, are we at 7 o'clock already?
When is the next planning commission meeting? Is it public?
The planning district commission?
Yeah.
They have quarterly meetings. I don't know when they are. You can probably go on the Planning District Commission's website and find that out. Actually, I want to say that they have one coming up on the 21st because I got invited to a water supply planning meeting just before that. But I do know that the PDC is doing some work in the housing sphere, and we engage with them some. But right now, like, I'm just trying to keep my head above water. And again, my focus is Lancaster, but I don't think anything that this county, that my county is doing is completely replicable elsewhere. It really is. It's replicable in any of the other counties. You just got to have like the wherewithal, the right people in place. And I'm just one person, so.
Yeah, and I think a major hindrance, I believe, just based upon the 12 years I've been here, has to do with our board of supervisors.
Yes.
And their lack of vision.
Which board is that?
Northumberland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think everyone in Lancaster would agree, especially our CBRAC would agree, that it's the continuity in leadership that's really kind of initiated it all. Yeah. Yes, Judy.
Sean, first of all, thank you for your work and your presentation. Can you name one or two things that you'd like to see come out of this group?
Yes. I thought she'd never ask. Like I said, my ulterior motive is progress, and like I said, without making connections and having conversations, you can't have progress. And if you don't have wide-ranging conversations with all community members, you can't do a one-size-fits-all approach. And there are community members that we do not have access to. These are folks that are the lowest income among us. These are the people that are predominantly our workforce. These are our black populations, our black neighborhoods. We need our young people. They're invisible. I go around Kilmarnock and the county, and you don't see an under 40. And I had to go do reconnaissance, and I'm not kidding you. I had to go to the Hunan Village on a Friday night at 8 o'clock at night to figure out where they were at, or 606 over there in Whitestone, or Tiki Bar, figure out where they hang out at, you know. But no, we don't. All joking aside, we need access to those people, and we need to engage in dialogue and conversations, and I think that's what you all can do. I can give you a priority list of the things that we'd like to communicate with. So my CBRAC, my Lancaster 2035 group, our communications committee, the ones that are doing the focus groups, we can tell you what we need, and you guys go help us find it and find us the people so we can, have these meaningful conversations, distill what they're telling us into possible actions. Because one thing we don't want to do is I don't want to create a Lancaster 2035 that's not for everyone, and it's not what the people that are going to be there in 2035 want. So otherwise, it's just we're just wasting our time here. And I thank you all for inviting me out. I really appreciate it. I'll stick around a little while if some of y'all want to have an individual. Thank you.